There was a story that was first reported in the New York Post yesterday by Brian Wacker about a 9/11 coalition of families and survivors of the 2001 terrorist attacks. 9/11 Families United sent a letter to the representatives of Phil, Dustin, Bryson, Reed, and others, quote, expressing their outrage towards the golfers for participating in the new league and accusing them of sports washing and betraying the United States, end quote. And that's gotten a lot of steam over the last 24 hours. That story first reported again in the New York Post. How much did you talk to your players about the possible ramifications if they sign on with the new league?
Well, I talked to players. I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, you know, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour? I think today is it's a historical day for the PGA Tour and the game of golf, and it's a historical day for the PIF and the DP World Tour. And you're right, you know, there's been a lot of tension in our sport over the last couple of years. But what we're talking about today is coming together to unify the game of golf. We've recognized that together we can have a far greater impact on this game than we can working apart. And I give Yasser great credit for coming to the table, coming to the discussions with an open heart and an open mind. We did the same, and the game of golf is better for what we've done here today.
You know, Reeta Hubbard, the NFL chick, is here. Reeta, you know what this is all about, right? We know what it's all about. It's so funny. It's so funny to hear. Those were statements from the same person coming out of the same mouth about a year apart. That's Jay
almost
Monahan.
To the day. Almost to
the day,
by the way.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA, hey, listen, those people over there, that LIV Golf thing and sports washing, hey, you don't have to apologize for being down with us because they're doing something different. They're doing sports washing. They have to live with themselves. I don't know how they even sleep at night. Their conscience must be heavy. How could they? How could those golfers go over there? But no, not us. We're nice and clean. We do it the right way. That was last year. Mm-hmm. Today, we have a merger. We have a merger between the PGA and I love the way this headline puts it, the Saudi-backed LIV Golf Tour and PGA merger, all one big happy family now, Reeta. And all I can say is, you know, don't get in the middle. Reeta, I'm just going to give you some advice. You know, you can take it for what it's worth. You don't have to take my advice. I'm just going to say, don't get in the middle of a family argument. Don't get in the middle of it because it's generally about one or two things. No matter what all the people say it's about, it's generally about one or two things. Usually money is at the center of it. Like if you and I have an argument, like you get mad at me, you'll probably get mad at me over you feel like I owe you some money or something. And I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not my fault. It's Gary or Natalie's fault. It's not me. It's not my fault. Anyway, but isn't that what this is all about? Isn't this about money? It was separate money, and now all that money is coming together. And forget about all the storylines we had this time last year.
Yeah, you know, a prophet slash rapper named Lil Wayne once said, the money is the motive, right? And so anybody can be bought as far as I'm concerned when it comes to corporations, when it comes to businesses. You know, people try to pretend that they have some type of morality And then if there's a number that is high enough that can get you to change your mind, that is said or that is met, then that immediately goes out the door. And I don't think that this is any different. We literally watched a press conference from a year ago of him pretending to have some type of morale and brings up the 9/11 because we know that the families were against players, PGA players playing in the LIV tournaments. But now all of a sudden it's a new day. And so what has changed? And the only thing that we can come up with, Holley, is the number change. The number was met.
Right. That's right.
Everything was set. Here's my where I'm like, oh, this is messed up. Because you had guys that were riding and dying for the PGA tournament. You had guys that were turning down money from the LIV tournament and saying, no, I'm being loyal. I'm a rock with the PGA and I'm not going to do that. And, you know, I can't be bought. And now all of a sudden you're part of the same corporation now that has merged with that. So now they have you looking foolish because you were loyal to a fault and they had no loyalty, none whatsoever. So what did we learn in this message here? I don't know if we should talk about this, but I'm going to say it. Maybe we shouldn't be loyal to corporations because they're not loyal to nothing dollar when it all boils down to it.
Right. And I'd say, and the other thing, you bring up a great point. The other factor here is not only were some of these golfers loyal to the PGA Tour and saying, oh, I'm not going there, even though they offered me X amount of dollars. That money, as we know with contract negotiations, is never coming back.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I guess they could say, hey, look, I never sold out to the LIV Tour. On the flip side, PGA Tour is now the LIV Tour.
Yep.
It's one and the same now, and they cost you money.
Yep.
Like if you were tempted to do it, well, you probably should have done it.
Yep.
You probably should have done it, and because the money is now gone, and it's just there's so many questions now about what this is going to be with all these previously competing interests coming together. Is Monahan still the central figure in this? Do golfers say, wait a minute, if you're merging with the LIV Tour, if it was sports washing last year, have they now disavowed any kind of connection to the people who bankrolled them last year? Is this a new day now just because they're under the same umbrella as they put it? Does that mean they're clean now and they were dirty last year? There are a lot of questions about who's running this operation, who's in charge, and what it means for the golfers. I do wonder this, Rita, and I'll give you the last word on it because I want to talk about some more corporate hypocrisy in a different sport. I wonder if there will be another golf tour in the U.S., in Canada, in Europe that doesn't have obviously overtly dirty ties. They say, well, look, if PGA and LIV are getting together, I don't want to be down with either one of them. So we're going to start our own thing.
Okay.
We're going to start something else. And we're going to recruit those golfers who have some kind of discomfort being affiliated with PGA/LIV. We're going to give them another alternative that they can have a clear conscience with this thing. Maybe? Or is that too pie in the sky?
I mean, yeah, it might be too pie in the sky, right? But wouldn't it be cool? I believe that golfers are meeting today at 4 p.m. to talk about this new merger, right? And what if guys decide that they don't want to be aligned with this merger and decide that they don't want to play? Wouldn't it be cool if they found a way to band together and create some type of, or get some investors that could create what it is that they're looking for? I think that would be pretty cool. I mean, look, Tiger Woods turned down, correct me if I'm wrong, like $800 million from the LIV tournament. So, but we know Tiger Woods is not broke. Now, is $800 million a lot of money now knowing that you're actually merging? Sure, absolutely. But if Tiger Woods feels, and I'm just using him as an example, I do not expect Tiger Woods per se to do anything. But if you have a guy like a Tiger Woods who has influence, who also has money and says, well, let's create our own supplemental league so guys who don't feel comfortable being a part of this league can now still continue to golf and still continue to be a part of something that they can stand behind, I think that that would be a great alternative for what it is that they're looking for. I'm just curious to know who would be the catalyst for what that movement would be. But I definitely think that you would have to get some guys with some large names behind you in order to make that happen.
Hey, Greg Norman did it with LIV Golf.
Yeah,
it could be done. And Tiger's got a lot more money than Greg Norman. If I can count their money for them, I know Tiger's doing very well. The funny thing, I love the great line from Monahan. He left a part out. He said, oh, yeah, he opened his heart, he opened his mind, and you all opened your wallets and combined them. And that's what this was all about. Forget about your open heart and your open mind. Now, speaking of an open mind, or maybe not open mind, but a confused mind. I'm a little confused on this, Rita, in this sense. We have yet another report of an NFL player, NFL players gambling. Okay, they're gambling. They're caught for gambling. In the case of Isaiah Rodgers of the Indianapolis Colts, he bet on Colts games. Well, to which I want to say, dude, do you watch the Colts? Like, man, why you, listen, you go bet on the Chiefs, bet on the Bengals. No, I'm just playing. No, seriously. But he bet on Colts games, $25 to $50 at times. You shouldn't do that. No, we know you shouldn't do that. You cannot be an NFL player betting on games, especially games involving your team.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, Rita, I gotta say, like, this has been very lucrative for the NFL. Everywhere, I'm not exaggerating, everywhere I turn, everywhere I look, if I want to read an article about something on a draft pick or free agent signing or anything, I see some kind of reminder about the NFL's relationship with gambling. They're saying, hey, bet on this. Here are the odds. Sponsored by this, sponsored by that. We'll do the same thing. Like, we'll have I'll say, who are the favorites to win the Super Bowl? We'll put up a graphic, and then we'll say, brought to you by, okay, whatever. So the NFL has jumped the broom. Come on now. We're going to teach y'all something. Everybody don't know what that means, but NFL has jumped the broom. They jumped the broom. And so now we're married now. They're married now to a lot of gambling operations.
He's married now.
Yet they stand here and say, but no. Players, you can't do that because the credibility of the league is at stake if people believe that the players are not in there for fair competition. And you can recite all the talking points. But let me flip it around, and I'll give you the word on this. What if the money keeps coming in at such a staggering rate to the NFL, and that the profits keep going up and up, where you find yourself a partner with a huge gambling corporation? You find yourself in bed with these folks. Isn't it fair? You talk about the players questioning their motives. Isn't it fair for us then to question your motives, because now there are billions of dollars at stake? This is a very slippery slope for the NFL. So I would say, look, players, you should know better, but don't be wagging that finger too much at me, NFL, because you have kind of jumped into this vortex, and I wonder if you're going to get in so deep that you won't be able to get out.
Yeah, the NFL is very much so a do as I say, not as I do type of league. So they're going to give you the rules, but that doesn't mean that the rules apply to them, because they're the billionaires. They're the billion-dollar business. So obviously you and I both know that betting on games, particularly on teams that you're on, is a bad look. And look, Pete Rose ain't taught y'all nothing. Calvin Ridley ain't taught y'all nothing. No, these people didn't teach y'all anything. Clearly it is not morally, good to be doing these things. It is an awful, awful look. You can't do it. That being said, it's hilarious to me that the league that is telling these guys that they can't do it are basically about to allow betting sports books in stadiums.
Yeah.
Inside stadiums. The very stadiums that at one point you tried to tell us, oh no, you can't do this and that. Now you're in bed with them, and now this is a love affair going on. But no, they can't bet. Now I want to be clear. I think that betting on games and you're a player is stupid. I think it's ridiculous. Yeah. Get your friend to do it, okay? Get somebody else to do it.
Betting on what kind of games though? Any games? Because NFL says you can't bet on anything. They say you can't bet on any sport.
I don't think that you should be able to bet on NFL games as an NFL player, but I do believe that you should be able to bet on any other sport because you have no effect on those other sports. Neither, and a lot of your, camaraderie, a lot of your colleagues are going to be in the leagues that you essentially play in, right? And not necessarily by large quantity in other leagues. So I think you should be able to bet on other leagues. I don't think you should be able to bet on your league. The problem is that, again, if you allow that becomes a slippery slope, which is why I believe they don't allow them to do any of them. But my thing is that you know the rule. You know the rule. And while we know that it's stupid, Holley, we can agree that it ain't the best rule. What I'm not going to do is put my money on the line just so I can win a little bet to give some chump change to go to the club with on a Sunday after I win a game. That's what I'm not going to do.
Well, that's where I disagree with you, though. That's where I disagree with you.
That's the thing. That the rule is the rule. I don't agree with the rule, but unfortunately it exists.
No, that's not our point of disagreement. I agree with you on that. Here's our point of disagreement. That maybe it's not chump change. Maybe it's not chump change for anybody. And so there are players who will, look, there's some players who are just going to be like, hey, instead of saying my name is Calvin Ridley, I'll be Ridley Calvin. There's some guys, okay, there's some guys who will do that, who just won't really do a good job of masking their identity. It's easy to come back to them. But like this is dangerous. That's why I say the NFL, I guarantee you, I'm not rooting for it, but I just know what it's like when people have money to make. People make poor decisions. They get really greedy. They get desperate. They lose their ability to reason clearly and to think soberly, and they just start chasing money. And so mistakes happen. So I'm telling you, what's going to happen, we're going to find there's going to be somebody, it might be a player, it might be a coach, it might be a general manager who is lured into a much bigger network than $25 here and $50 here. You got a lot of people who got money to spend on the National Football League. They're invested. And what if they entice you with something that it doubles your salary if you're the 38th guy on the roster or the 42nd guy on the roster? Look, as I said, I'm not asking for it. I don't want anybody to ruin their career like that. But there are ways to do this. Once you start getting into the gambling world, you're going to be dealing with some heavy hitters who want you to do certain things, and they're willing to pay to get it. Well, we just talked about it 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago with LIV Golf. Yep. Look what they were willing to do to establish themselves as a golf league. Now, ultimately, they went into City Hall, and they were absorbed by City Hall, LIV Golf. Okay, all right. We were the rebels for a while. Now we're just mainstream with the PGA. So some people will spend a lot of money to get what they want, and I wonder if we'll be having a different conversation. It's easy to just kind of jump on the players. Oh, these guys should know better.
Right.
But there are a lot of people affiliated with the NFL, GMs, coaches, owners. I don't know.
Listen,
I don't know.
I mean, I agree with you. You already got fans and other people that got tinfoil hats on and believe that games are rigged. This doesn't help any of that, right? It makes all of that worse when you start thinking about them being in bed with gambling. Because when things go a certain way, what do we always hear? that's Vegas doing it. Oh, that's Vegas. So
Yep.
this is already ugly. It's already, it's not the best relationship to have here. But now you're trying to tell your employees, well, you can't be in this relationship. It's just us at the top. I don't like it.
I think there's some relationship analogies in the NBA Finals with the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets. Game 3 tomorrow night. We're going to talk about that next. Natalie is here. We're going to talk about that with Natalie coming up on Brother from Another. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate y'all.
None of those guys on Miami are sitting there saying, well, I didn't play, or man, they put in so and so. Like, they're just all about winning. And you know this from our groups that we've had. When you have that championship mentality, every guy's bought in, every guy's just trying to win. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. You don't go into the locker room, saying, well, I should have played more. You just want to win. And that's the beauty of finding that magic when you have a championship team, is that everybody's bought in, and it makes the decisions for the coach really simple. You just go with your gut and go with whoever's playing well.
All right, that's Steve Kerr on the Draymond Green podcast, which is so interesting to me, Natalie. I don't know what Draymond's future is with the Warriors. Does it matter? Did Draymond have to go through the PR department, the media relations department, to request Steve Kerr?
That's a good question.
They treat him like another reporter? Does he text him and come on? And then Kerr's on the media relations department like, hey, look, Steve, you got to clear this with us because you said some things that are problematic. Now the beat writers are asking about it. Anyway, Natalie, what did you think about what Kerr and Draymond were talking about as it relates to the NBA Finals?
I just wish both of them would be quiet, to be honest. Like, if you're going to react to Game 2 and talk about Game 2.
We can't hear Natalie. I don't know if Natalie needs to unmute.
No.
If it's on our end or not. Try to.
Can you hear me now?
All right, there you go. All right, there we go. I love it.
I heard her, and I heard her say she wants them to be quiet. That's what I did here. Did I make that up? Okay. She said that she wants them to STF you.
Yes, I do. Because you know what? It was just unnecessary. And Steve Kerr ain't slick. We know that he was taking some shots at his own team and complimenting, the Heat. And I just think it's unnecessary. The Heat, yes, they do have players like that. The circumstances are different on the Warriors. And I think going on Draymond Green's podcast when you're going to have a lot to decide about Jordan Poole this summer is quite a statement without him making a statement. Because you already at the end of the season said, we need Draymond, we can't win without him, blah, 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 blah. Then, Steve Kerr comes on, and at the beginning of this pod that you didn't hear was this love fest between the two of them where Draymond Green was just giving Steve Kerr all kinds of flowers. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve them, but it was a bit much. Is there a contract negotiation this season? So it was just so much. And then he makes these comments, and it's like some people are saying like he thinks they think it was directed at the front office. But even if it was, how is Jonathan Kuminga going to hear that? How is Jordan Poole going to hear that? And like if those guys aren't traded, you still need them to be a part of this team. So I didn't think it was necessary.
Okay, but Natalie and Rita, tell me this. Let's say it was a shot, as this one says, subtle but brutal. And not that subtle either. Let's say it was a shot at those guys. Is it not true? Like, he could be taking a shot, but I agree with him. Hey, there's a point and some teams never get there. That's why I enjoy this back and forth between Kerr and Draymond, because they've been there 4 times. They've conquered it 4 times, and they've been there more than that. But they know there's a certain mentality that you got to have to win a championship, and some teams never quite get it. Like, they have the talent to get it. They have the opportunity to get it, but they don't quite get that mental thing. So isn't it could be a nice little shot at the front office and his players, but it's also true. Is it not true what he said? Like, tell me the lie. Where were the lies?
The problem is that it's flawed reasoning. Like, the teams that do have that mentality and reach that, they don't have it with lottery picks that just came out. Those kinds of players are not typically on the team, right? And so you're asking players, Draymond Green's never been in that situation. The moment he came into the league, he came into a playoff ready team. Yeah, it was under Mark Jackson, but they were playoff ready. And he also was not a lotto pick. Draymond Green was a late second round draft pick. Like, saying that Jonathan Kuminga should not expect to play over the likes of two-way players, right? Who Steve Kerr opted to play all season and then who did not see the court in the postseason. So what are we doing? You're playing them. You're not developing your young guys. There's a finite window that NBA players have to be NBA players, right? And their careers are short. And you're telling very talented players who actually have something to give and who actually need to be developed. That's the job.
Do they?
You bring those, yes, they need to be developed. If you're not
there was a little bit of a delay, like a second and a half. I was responding to need to play. Hey, listen.
Well, they don't need to play on. They do need to play.
We got the baby Dubs. We got where's that team? The G League team. Where are they?
But what I'm saying is, if you're saying you don't need them,
the baby Dubs.
You don't think Michael Holley, the Warriors could have used a player with Jonathan Kuminga's skill set in the Lakers series, right? So when I say you need to play,
meaning
I love
Kuminga.
You have to develop those guys because you actually need them to win games. If you're not going to have players that you can put in on the court, right? You weren't playing Anthony Lamb. So if you're not going to develop Kuminga to let him play, then what are you doing? So then trade them. So that's my point. When I say you need them, it's because if they don't play, they can't develop. And if they don't play and develop, then they can't help the team win. And the team needs more than the starting five to win.
So the question I have, though, is that for you, when you hear that, Nat, is the philosophy or the fact that they said it out loud the bigger issue? Which one do you rank to be more of an offense, per se?
Both. But Kerr's philosophy is aggravating. He's not a coach who's capable of developing players. It's not his strong suit, and he refuses to adjust. So to me, if he's not going to do that and he refuses, then the front office does have to act accordingly, because you're wasting the young years of these players, and you're also not giving your stars the help that they need to win. But, he's praised all the time for being this media savvy person. And I'm like, I guess that was media savvy, but is it? Because you're complicating things, even in the potential negotiations for a trade, or if they don't get traded and now you need to keep them on the team, now you're like ruffling feathers. For what? For what? I just don't see the purpose. I don't see the what it accomplishes.
Well, Kerr and Draymond were talking about the NBA Finals.
Yes.
Let's talk about teams that are playing in the NBA Finals. It's the Warriors. not the Warriors.
No.
It's the Warriors.
The Nuggets and the Miami Heat.
Yes.
Game 3 tomorrow night. Let's hear Jimmy Butler talking about Nikola Jokic.
Bam's been playing incredibly well this entire playoffs.
I'll clean it up.
For sure this series. And this one, he got the toughest matchup by far on the defensive side of the ball, and he plays with so much energy. He never takes a possession or a play off, so you got to really respect him for that. And then on the offensive end, he's doing everything for us. So we need him to continually be that. He has been that for us all year long, and like I said, he's going to be the reason why we win the championship.
And let me clean that up. It was obviously Jimmy Butler talking about Bam Adebayo, not Nikola Jokic, but Adebayo has to deal with Jokic, who could, I get the feeling, y'all, that he could score 50 points if he needed to, but then what does that mean for the rest of the Denver Nuggets? We had Eric Spoelstra lecture us and saying, oh, no, we don't want him to just score points and not have assists. That is the untrained basketball eye.
Untrained.
The untrained basketball eye. But I'll tell you what the untrained basketball eye does see about these teams. And Reeta, you mentioned relationships at the end of our A block. And really, the Nuggets are in the place of the other teams that Miami dispatched on the way to the NBA Finals. And the other teams are, if I could just make them into a composite, they're that friend of yours who you like hanging out with a lot of the time. You like hanging out with them a lot of the time. They are fun, they're witty, you don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, they are the life of the party. They bring dynamism, they bring all these exciting things. But sometimes you just don't know who the hell you're gonna get when you call them up. Like, where's this stank attitude coming from? Why are you so mean? Why is like, just yesterday, we were hanging out yesterday, we were having a good time. Today, I don't know what to expect from you. That was the Celtics especially, are that kind of team. One day they're great, and then the other day you're like, what the hell happened to you? But I'll tell you who Miami is. Miami is the reliable friend. The reliable friend. They are pretty much steady every day. Every day. You call, you need a ride somewhere, they got you. You need somebody to talk to, they got you. It ain't always perfect, but they're always there. Always. And so I wonder, Natalie, you first, I wonder if that's enough. Just that it's talent plus consistency and discipline. I think that's going to give us our first totally unexpected NBA champion since 2004. I mean, totally unexpected. When Detroit beat a star-studded Lakers team. Is that going to be enough for Miami? That in their DNA, is that enough to win a championship?
I think it can be enough. Will it be enough? Time will tell. I will tell you what, though. Like Mike Smith, I picked the Denver Nuggets in 6, but I totally hedged. I said, I think the Heat can win. I think the Heat can win. And I didn't like the way that everyone was sort of doubting the Heat, so I almost wanted to just pick the Heat in defiance. But I want them to prove me wrong, and I want the Heat to win. Like, I'm in on this now because, look, both sides have a compelling story. They really do. And I keep saying, like, it feels like two teams that are destined to win, but only one can win. I think the difference for the Miami Heat is just the margin of error. Like, they have enough, but they do have to be a little bit more perfect than maybe the Denver Nuggets do to win games. But like you said, they're steady. So if they can remain steady and do what they have to do, and by the way, they're off to a good start because they did what they needed to, which was get one on the road. If they can continue, yes, they could. I'm not ready to say they will, but they definitely could be an 8th seed surprise champion.
I agree with that. I do think that they have the tools that it takes to do it. They've done it thus far, right? They've done it the entire playoffs. They found a way to be consistent, and it's allowed them to get to the point that they're at. And Nat and I hosted Friday, and jokingly, I was like, I'm about to jump off the wagon. It's going to be the Nuggets in 4. It's going to be a clean sweep. Now, and I said that too, guys, because I felt like the Nuggets didn't play well, I didn't think, in game 1. And yet, they had such a wide, large margin in that game until the end, of course. And I just really felt like that their size was going to be an issue for Miami. But the one thing that I really loved about what they did in game 2 is that I don't care what Coach Spo said. Everything about the whole allowing Jokic to score and then get less assists tells a lot about the story about how they won in game 2. And so I'm not suggesting that they are like, we're okay with Jokic getting 50 points for the rest of this series. I'm sure that they're not, but ultimately there's nothing you can do about him. There's nothing you can do about him, but what you can do is neutralize everybody else that's around him potentially. And as long as you make your shots and play the other guys defensively, you absolutely have a chance to win this series. So, I mean, I still do think that the Nuggets will win, but I definitely think that the Heat are just they're just so overachieving. And I don't mean to be disrespectful by any means. Let me be clear, because it feels disrespectful when you call someone an overachiever. I just feel like it feels like this task is so heavy for them, and yet they're in it. And that's the crazy part about this whole thing, about this whole playoff, quite frankly.
But you know what? It's not disrespectful, Reeta. It's not disrespectful to say they're overachievers. Hell, I'm an overachiever. And call me an overachiever. That's fine. That's not disrespectful. Now, it's disrespectful if you say you're overachieving and that's the only reason you're winning. Now, they are overachieving and there's something else. Okay, and this is why, hey, and Gary, bring up that headline. There's a headline that I'm starting to say, you know what? I've seen about 25 of these headlines this postseason. I'm going to say this is all BS. Hey, the Heat gave the Nuggets, or the Nuggets got a wake-up call from the Heat. The Nuggets got a wake-up call. Okay, the Nuggets got a wake-up call. The Celtics got a wake-up call. The Knicks got a wake-up call. Yep. The Bucks got a wake-up call. Ask Mike Budenholzer, who's no longer getting wake-up calls because he lost his job. That's not funny. That's not funny. But anyway,
you can sleep a little later.
That's just wrong. That's just nasty. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. But listen, is it a wake-up call or is it this? Rita, I know you're a baseball fan. All right. Everybody who watched Mariano Rivera close games for the Yankees, everybody said the dude throws one pitch. It's a cutter. You go up there, look for the cutter, and you can beat him. But he threw that cutter with discipline. He threw that cutter at the right time. He was committed to it. Sometimes you got him. Most of the time you didn't. You knew what was coming, but he was such a scientist at what he was doing. It didn't matter that you knew. He had the will. He had intelligence. He had discipline, and you couldn't beat him. And you didn't realize that until you played him, until you faced him. He made it looks easy when you're on the outside looking in, but when you're standing up there 60 feet away from Mariano Rivera and that cutter is coming, you know it's coming, but it looks different, it's hard to hit. And I think all these teams have been fooled by watching other people play the Miami Heat. Oh, you know what? We got Jimmy. Okay, Duncan Robinson, he ain't nothing. Oh, I played against Bam. I can control him. And then when you see it all come together, Natalie, ooh, it's more than you expected. And you find yourself in a street fight. And if you ain't, and a lot of people ain't ready for a street fight, myself included. If you ain't ready for a street fight, you go lose.
Well,
I think that's what happened with Miami.
Yeah, and to your point, I actually think people also overreacted a little bit to the Nuggets sweeping the Heat. I think that made them feel like, oh, they're a juggernaut. And again, the Denver Nuggets are a very good team. So, but I want people to remember the entire postseason and the entire regular season. They won 53 games, which is actually not that much, right? Like that's usually like a 4 or 5 seed, maybe a 6 seed, right? So they're one of the lower winning number 1 seeds in NBA history, right? And then the games were sort of close with the Timberwolves. Yeah, it was a 4-1 series, but they were close. It could have gone 6. The Suns did push them 6 with 4 players on the team? The Suns don't got nobody on that squad, you know? And so, and the Lakers, they swept the Lakers, but those were all close games. That if something just goes a little different here, a little different there. So I just feel like the sweep, though, kind of made everyone say, oh, you know? And I think the Heat actually face tougher opponents, you know, than the Nuggets had to. They had the Bucks. And yes, Giannis missed a couple games, but he came back. He was there for game 4. He was there for game 5, you know, and they beat the Celtics, who were, yes, inconsistent, but the number 1 and 2 top team in the NBA, not just in the East, for the entire season, and who were much closer to a 60-win team than any team that the Nuggets played. So I think we really need to stop all this, you know, oh, look at who the Heat played, downplaying their competition. Like, I think these teams are probably closer than we think. Jokic is the clear best player in the series, but, you know, I think they're going to give us a series, and I just want to sit back and enjoy it with no vested interest.
Stress-free. That's the best thing, to be stress-free. When you got guys that are, okay, because you mentioned Jokic is obviously the best player right now in the finals, but the Heat, what they have is they just have a bunch of guys that's ready to play. They're like, look, I'm just going to grab my pail. I'm going to put my boots on. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to put my hat on, and I'm just going to work. So while the names aren't as recognizable as Jokic, and I know that, you know, Jimmy Butler, we've praised him over time. But as of right now, I mean, like, Bam is playing his best basketball. He could potentially be a series MVP if they find a way to win this series. So it's just guys on different nights are doing different things within this whole playoffs. It really feels like, you know, last series we talked about the Caleb Martin, and then now this series I'm saying that Bam, to me, has been the more consistent player in the first 2 games. So it really is about being a team effort with the Miami Heat. When someone's slacking, there's other players that are there to help them pick themselves up and to keep them moving. And to me, that's how they've gotten this far. You really need your supporting cast to have your back when you're struggling, if you're a star player of your team.
For sure.
All right, hey, listen, you just dropped the mic on that one, huh? Natalie's like, yeah, that's right. All right, hey, yeah, that's right. Okay, and that's it. Listen, Natalie, thank you.
Thank you.
Reeta, thank you on this NBA topic. I know it's the NFL chick, but listen, Reeta, you start off, you talk golf, you got football,
A little
you got
bit,
the
I'm
NBA.
trying.
I mentioned baseball. I'm gonna throw a little baseball at you.
Yeah,
Coming up
now
in a
that's
minute.
where it gets real. That's where it's gonna get real.
She versatile.
Okay.
She versatile. We like that in our
All right.
rappers. We like that in our hosts too.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Coming up, we're talking some MLB with the NFL chick. All right, Reeta, as promised, we're going to talk some baseball. And look, this is going to challenge our relationship, Reeta. This is really going to challenge us, especially if you agree with these rankings that are on the screen right now. The rankings say the number 1 team is a team I despise most in all of sports, not just baseball. All the sports.
We've talked about
I
this.
can't stand the Tampa Bay Rays. So if you think they're the number 1 team, then we got something to talk about. But it's really interesting. You see the Orioles are 3rd, ahead of the Dodgers, ahead of the Yankees, ahead of the Blue Jays. I'll tell you, the team in my town doesn't even show up on the list.
But they're
Boston
there.
Red Sox.
I mean, it's just a top. It's
They
a top
stink.
10. They're there.
They
They're
stink.
hanging around though.
They're terrible. And look, they're terrible. And they're one of those people who got money but then act cheap. Like, you got money. You got money. You've been sold out for like 100 years. You got a TV network that you operate. The owner of the Globe owns like Premier League soccer teams, and he owns the Boston Globe. And he's in partnership with LeBron James and Maverick Carter. He got all kinds of stuff going on. They act like they're the sad sack, cheap Tampa Bay Rays. Anyway, what about this power ranking list stands out to you? Because I know what stands out to me. What stands out to you?
A couple things, right? The fact that there are 4 AL East teams, and I absolutely hate being in the AL East as an Orioles fan, because I am really tired of the rest of everyone else being better. And even though we're playing much better right now, you still got to fight with everyone else. Hate that. I don't understand why the Dodgers are ahead of the Yankees when they just beat that series. The Yankees did. They won 2 out of 3 of those series pretty handedly, by the way. So I'm confused about that. The Diamondbacks, man, where did they come from? I just feel like that they've just gotten good out of nowhere. I think at one point last week, they had the best record in the National League, of all National League. So that's been interesting. You mentioned the Orioles being 3. I think the reason why they are 3 is because they're the first team with 20 road wins. They were the first team, which is, huge, man, for a team that is very young. You can't name an ace pitcher that they have. You might be able to name 2 guys that they have offensively, maybe. Of course, I can. But you, Holley, you might be able to name 2, but they don't have no real ace. And they're out here winning on the road the way that they did, being the first team. That's huge. So they have to be 3. I guess you got to give the Rays 1 because they have the best record. But but I hate them too. They're just so underwhelming to me. And then, you know, they're not going to win the World Series, right? Like, I mean, come on. You do this every year. You get good. You have good players. You don't pay all your players a whole lot of money, but you find ways to win. You know, I think McClellan just got to 9 wins last night. But then ultimately the World Series is going to come and y'all going to come up short. I'm sick of the Rays, honestly. I don't even want to
I am too. But I'll tell you who I'm not sick of. I'll tell you who I'm not sick of. And this is what stands out to me. On that list, your Baltimore Orioles. Seriously, I would say that if you were here or not. I'm serious. It's the Baltimore Orioles. I saw them first series of the season at Fenway Park, where it was, you know, opening day, I think it was like 39 degrees. Like, why they have opening day
cold up there
in March? It's the Northeast. It's March. Don't play baseball in the Northeast in March. You could really do this, Major League Baseball. You could do it. There are enough teams in domes and in the Southeast and in the West and Southwest where you could have the whole league open the season where everybody's happy and there are no rainouts, snow, like games postponed by snowstorms. You could do this whole thing. But anyway, I digress. I saw them at the beginning of the season, and all the scores in those games were like 10-9, 9-7. Yep. They were going to extra innings a couple of times. Nobody could pitch. And I said, okay, both of these teams are going to be, you know, they'll be entertaining, but they won't be that good. The Orioles, though, separated from the rest of the division. You said they're young. They're very talented. And they executed. They have executed. So I'm happy. I'm happy for Baltimore. I wish you all could get a new owner for that team, because you deserved better in Baltimore. Baltimore is a great, as you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Baltimore is a great sports town, particularly in football. Had some terrible football owner who's now in Indianapolis, and baseball. It's a great baseball town with just a horrible owner. So I'm hopeful that things will turn around for the Baltimore Orioles. Not only will you win, you get to the playoffs and win it. When's the last time the Orioles won a World Series? Like 1983 or something? 83?
I was 4. Wow. And so, you know, I have a very, very short memory of being at the parade. And so I can't imagine what the city would look like 40 years later, because it's been 40 years. I have no idea what the city, I feel like we might burn it down. It might not be there the next day.
Don't do that.
If they win the World Series.
Don't do that. See, look, I'm trying to stand up for Baltimore, and then you're gonna say, "Hey, listen, we might burn the city."
Listen, if the Orioles win the World Series,
I hope y'all don't win.
I can't guarantee the city is gonna be a wreck the next day. It's just, I'm sorry, it might not be there anymore. But we had a blast bringing it down because the Orioles won the World Series.
I love the East Coast. I grew up in the Midwest. I love the East Coast. Philadelphia won the Super Bowl. They were climbing street poles.
Yep.
They were like, what y'all doing? Like,
that's
you
nothing,
won.
Holly. That's nothing, Holly. When the Ravens won in 2012, they climbed the stadium walls to get in because they had closed off the doors because it was over capacity. They were climbing the stadium walls. We're a crazy city, but we have a good time.
Some people can't take anywhere. Some people just can't take anywhere. But I hope they win anyway.
Me too.
Every kid today can just change the stations and see how much progress has been made in this country. ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, CNN, Fox News all have African-American and Hispanic hosts. So what I'm suggesting is that yesterday's exception is today's rule. And for us to suggest—
America has met its promise.
No, of course, the concept of America is that we are going to become a more perfect union. But in fact, the challenges that we faced 50 years ago and 60 years ago should not be the same challenges that we face today.
So that was Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott. And Rita, I got to tell you, look, if you take the R away from his name, if you take the R from behind his name, I'm not really surprised that he has this, I'm going to be charitable and call it a very surface view of racial progress, because there are a lot of people who just look at it that way. He looks at the on-air host of these networks that he named, but what about the structure? How about the front office? How about the president? How about the vice president? How about the people who are like running the actual network? So I think this is not unusual, although I would love to just go in and just focus on Tim Scott and say, man, you don't get it. But I think there are a lot of people who look at race and racism in this way, where it's just it's anything I see on the surface, then that's racial progress, without really getting into the systemic aspect of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I believe that people choose to be obtuse about these types of things because it doesn't fit their narrative. So this is a man that's running for president. He's going to try to get the black vote. So he has to say things that, sound good. Okay, so you mentioned Obama. He's one of 46. You mentioned, all these other examples, and they're absolutely exceptions and not the rules. And there's too much data out here that agrees with the fact that racism and white supremacy exists, and it because of that suppresses other groups of race. So the fact that that we're integrated and that people can make money now, that doesn't mean that racism is dead. It doesn't mean that black people still don't have racial issues that they deal with from a professional and personal financial level. It just simply means that you're running for president and you just want to give us a bunch of crap to make it look cute and put a bow on it, put some lipstick on it, but it's still a pig, Tim Scott. It's still a racist pig.
Yeah. Look at me. Look at me. Racism doesn't exist. I got my own show. Racism doesn't exist. It's like, if I said that, that would be absolutely ridiculous. Oh, I don't know. But Reeta, listen, I've enjoyed this show. I've enjoyed doing this show with you. You're in your bag today. What else can you talk about? What else?
What you want to talk about? I got to keep up with you. I got to keep up with you.
How about, what else you got? Next show, what are we talking about? We're going to something different, something we didn't talk about today. What is it? MMA? Boxing?
Boxing. We got a fight coming up in July. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do that. Thank you, Reeta. Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.